The conversation is going very well. I'm not doing nothing.
Yeah, me neither.
So there's that.
And I rarely get to talk about books I like with other people, so
Same.
I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, me too. And I don't even think we even hit a dent in chapter 1. So
Yeah, yeah. I think Swa's probably getting back on. I think I have to buy my own copy because we have one shared copy, and so, but I feel like the book is so interesting because something that I noticed is there's an academic way of like thinking and doing, and like kind of like an because I learned things through like I was a STEM person, and so like reading this book, there's so much more subtlety in the arguments. It's not like as outright as I think I was expecting. Like almost from the title, I was expecting like almost like a statistical analysis, and like and so to read it now, I really am enjoying it because I think there is so much that like I feel like the author is just so good at really giving showing a line or a piece of text that you may have one interpretation of, and kind of making the argument that there's so much more here and it's a lot heavier than you may think.
yeah,
But you're a rhetoric, so you probably know like a lot of this type of writing.
yeah, but this stuff is different in a really good way. It could be more forthcoming and cannibal, but it's quite poetic to me.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I like that he says the same thing maybe 3 or 4 times in different ways using different subtexts, and yeah, so you get the point.
yeah.
Uh,
So, so sorry about being interrupted. So you were saying.
yeah, yeah. I'm gonna like that thought in a second. I'll get something in the microwave.
Oh. Okay.
and then it would seem almost mathematical because he tells you what he's going to tell you in the intro, and then he does exactly that, and it's like, whoa, you did.
Yeah.
And it's like a perfect balanced equation. Like, I'm like, wow. Yeah.
And it's so interesting to think about how many narratives or just like oral traditions that have been discounted that talk about the cannibalism that existed, because it's so interesting that you guys read this in school and where they didn't like this was it wasn't even like discussed. Like I feel like you could do a close read just on the line where what is the older man when they're on the boat says like I'm gonna eat like both of you guys or something like that. Like
Yeah.
that part was really disturbing. Like
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Why leave that part out?
Huh?
I wondered why my professor left that part out. I
Yeah.
thought he was like a radical, rhetoric professor,
But that's what Vincent talks about is he says that when people talk about these things in the narratives, they just like almost imply that it's much more symbolic than actually like physically like eating like physical like the physical act of consumption. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
but isn't the camera if you don't care?
Okay. So, I was saying what was I? Oh, so this like thought that before we interrupted, this kind of contextualizes like the stuff we were saying earlier about like just how the slave masters like felt and their mentality towards like owning other people. So it reads What the slave mainly fed was the master's sense of honor and his sexual appetite. After methodically butchering and cooking a male slave over a roiling open fire, one Kentucky slave master reported to his wife that he had never enjoyed himself so well at a ball as he had enjoyed himself that evening. So,
Yeah.
such incidents proliferate throughout the slave trading diaspora, especially in the Caribbean and the Americas, where carving, cooking, and eating of flesh served as punishments and conditioning rituals. Very important, conditioning rituals.
Mhm.
So,
How
how do,
dare he?
how do you guys feel about this quote? No comments. No.
I'm trying
Doesn't
to
really have
find
to go to
it.
Kentucky.
Um, I don't know if you have it because it's on. What's the earliest page you have? Because it's
Oh,
on page.
I got the PDF
Oh, nice.
because I was like, yeah, I might as well. But I'm trying to. What page did you say it was? I remember that line.
At the bottom of 33, then it goes to 34.
Hmm? Oh, I see. I'm here. Yeah, and I think that's interesting too because something that it reminds me of is like this kind of like innate sexual desire that white people project onto black people, like this idea that like black people are like almost like naturally skilled at like satisfying other people sexually, like white people project onto black people, whether it be like the black Jezebel or like the black man being like the buck or something like that.
Or the violent rapist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's almost like he's saying like nothing could make me feel as good or as like satisfied as this feeling because there's something about these people or these objects that are just like meant to satisfy me. Like that is their inherent like purpose or something.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a really like sick way to be like another human being. That literally reminds me of a conversation I had with a white person who literally told me that I should know. Like, I personally should know and be aware that black people are more likely to rape. And he told me that he has fears that you know his wife would be raped in certain neighborhoods. They're real life fears that he has. And I'm like, 2020, we have white men still thinking that black men are gonna rape their women when we have 400, 500 years of documented history of white men raping children, raping women, raping men every day. So if anyone is conditioned to be a rapist, it's probably white men. And this is like something we should talk about. What happens when you're allowed to rape people for 400 years? Does that just go away overnight? I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist, but yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so just how just the slave mentality, even though slavery ended about a week ago, we still have the slave mentality, you know? And all people have some sort of slave mentality because that's how the world just kind of ran.
And also, like, I like the, like, in that same paragraph, they talk about social consumption.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's totally like lynching. Like, that's social, like, that act brought like white people together. It brought community to white people, right? The act of like lynching. And it's
Yeah,
also like a social consumption.
I'm sure I have something about like lynching being like something like white people coming together and experiencing that sort of violence is like a unifying thing for them. That's
Yeah.
what
Page
their
48.
whiteness means to them. I feel like he
Say it's page 48. Okay, cool.
you know, you don't care to read it? I don't have it. I don't have it highlighted. I think.
It's at the start of the paragraph that says the state of pleasure that Equiano describes connotes horror, abjection, and human vampirism. In the context of social death and energetic exchange, pleasure operates as a organic unit, a life-sustaining energy readily bartered in exchange during slavery. A little bit down, it reads, Patterson analyzes Jim Crow lynching rituals as an
Mm-hmm.
ancient sacrificial rites, cannibalistic feasts, and attempts to feed a deity or of terror, an appetite usually referred to as God. And that's where I was struck in the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like through a white supremacist lens, I am like, gonna be like the more radical person because of the stuff I'm saying. But this is why non-white people should not be Christian. Because like how many people were put in this meat grinder that was slavery under the guise of Christianity and Jesus Christ until Jesus Christ has figures out a way to replace racism, white supremacy for a system of justice and peace. Yeah, I don't have to give him any minor attention because the biggest problem on earth is racism, white supremacy. I personally think this is not the opinions of everyone here. These are my personal opinions. So I think that's really important to not give any reverence to any god that you were brutalized into believing in, worshiping, any of the sorts. This is just a logic thing. This is like a logically, if you want your mental health to be somewhat in a good area, maybe don't practice what your ancestors were, beat to a bloody pulp, brutalized, raped to believe. No, I'm just trying to, like, that's just that.
Yeah. And there's his connection I'm seeing being drawn between what can be done in the outside versus the inside, to put it simply. Like going back to the Kentucky master slaveholder, he probably did this in the comfort of his own plantation, consuming the slave, cooking him, saying that he enjoyed it more than them all. And then there's this outside theater that also functions the same way, because maybe you can't cook a slave in the same way that you can in the comfort of your own home in public.
Mm-hmm. But don't let's not forget, like, there's postcards. Instead of like being able to take home a limb or two, they were like taking home postcards, making postcards of lunch, burn, castrated men. So yeah, they still were able to take their like tokens of black suffering, and a lot of like slavery and the suffering reminds me of that Black Mirror episode where where the black woman goes to the museum and her like dad or her like grandfather is like being housed in like this like piece of technology that allows white people or anyone to like activate it, and like they can like see him be tortured. Did you know the episode I'm talking about? Do you know?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is what that, like, you know, black suffering being a spectacle, black suffering being something to be entertaining. This is why we see it in so much of our media, entertainment. What do we? Well, I personally see a lot of like loss of life
She said it's very hot outside.
generated towards non-white people. That's what I see in my entertainment. When I watch TV, I see non-white people getting massacred. One of the greatest examples I've seen recently is Extraction, where we have Chris Helmsworth go to India, just fuck shit up. Yeah, you know, that's, you know, white supremacy in a nutshell right there.
And also, the recent death of George Floyd, if a masochist, a white masochist, can go and jack off to that for hours because it's on the internet.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
I did not even think about that, and
I know, no, yeah,
dark.
it's torture.
Sorry, not dark,
yeah,
but
yeah,
it's horrible.
I am so like, thank you, because like I've always had this thought, you know, that Black death, Black suffering is so accessible that maybe we do. I know for sure we have white supremacists who laugh at our suffering, who watch us get murdered and laugh about it. I see it. I literally see it every day. But as for like to get some kind of sexual relief from our suffering, of course that's probably still happening, because Jeffrey Dahmer was doing it. Who, like, did anyone say, hey, no one ever become like Jeffrey Dahmer? Were any of those steps put into place to prevent another Jeffrey Dahmer? I don't think there were. So who's to say there's not 1,000 Jeffrey Dahmers running around here satisfying themselves via Black suffering, Black death? So, damn. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, that's really heavy. Like,
so I want to mention this really like profound line. Where does this begin? Okay.
I think I missed this page or something.
Okay. Christianity, romantic friendships, British militarization, and U.S. slave crassity, all employed in making Equiano into a new world object of gastronomical delight. You know, I wanna talk about how this is such a good good way to describe like what, you know, white supremacists or white people as individuals and their institutions do to non-white people, because it's indicating like Equiano to be like, you know, so appetizing, like it's so appetizing in such a way that he's going to be able to give to so many things, like people, institutions, and he's going to be able to, you know, spread colonization and racism, white supremacy through of like, you know, what's going to happen to him via his conditioning.
Yeah, that's when I think Equiano says, but as men superior, I no longer looked upon them as spirits, but as men superior to us, and therefore I had the stronger desire to resemble them, to imbibe their spirit and imitate their manners.
Yes.
Like, yeah, and that's I feel like a lot of people go through that experience, especially people who are extracted from Black communities into white communities. It's even more prevalent because that is almost that's what happened to me when I went from like a predominantly Black and Latinx space to like a white high school, and like not being around white people until I was a teenager, like having to almost see them as a different type of existence, and then feeling like I have to imitate them or mime them to the best of my ability to maneuver this world as easily as I can. And it almost makes, like, I think for a lot of people, like, it's really easy to see yourself as lesser Not even because there's anything special about white people. It's just you're just brainwashed.
Yeah, I feel like it could be related to the can't beat them, join them mentality, or just the effects of being dominated by a group of people. You know, no one wants to be dominated, no one wants to be mistreated. So maybe if like I can, well, no, it's not maybe. We see Equiano literally state that the closer he got to whiteness or to Europeanness, the less likely it was for him to be brutalized, sexualized, or to go hungry. Because remember that one of his slave owners paid a guy whose only job was to make sure that he was fed once a day. Make sure my boy gets fed at least once a day. You know, and I don't feed him too much, just once a day. So we see that manifesting there. There's so much more to say.
It's a book.
And I'm making small so I can hear you. Do you know what I want to add to? Or
You don't even like that. Can I please read the book? No.
Why are you not letting her read the book?
Go ahead if you don't want me to. No. Here, take it.
does anyone want to add to or?
Sorry, I was being distracted. There's like a bunch of kids in this house.
Oh. Okay,
I think this is the closest thing that has described my first year at UC Berkeley. But you read not too long ago. I no longer looked upon them as spirits, but beings superior to us. Navigating a PWI, it's like, why do I feel this way? You know? Oh crap, I feel weird being on campus all this time. What is that? And not just white people, non-Black people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's not because like, I'm just gonna say I believe under the system of white supremacy, we're all conditioned to see people who maybe don't look like us in large quantities as a perceived like not threat, but something to create anxiety or discomfort, I would say. Because, you know, I I don't feel comfortable most places because I'm me being aware of the system I live under. I especially don't feel comfortable where there aren't any Black people, you know, but that's a double-edged sword because due to white supremacy, a lot of Black people, you know, I don't need to say it, but you know.
Like,
Mhm.
no, you can continue. Sorry.
No, I was done.
Okay. Do you want to go, Ebony?
I'm wondering what Swab was gonna say.
Yeah.
Black people.
Yeah, for real.
I'm reading it.
Oh well, like you know, like due to us being under like a system of like racism and white supremacy, just because I'm around Black people doesn't guarantee my safety because the system produces, you know, the mentality conditioning of violence, which happens to be really prominent, you know, in Black communities due to the conditioning of white supremacy, you know.
Lateral violence. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a perfect example of that. It happened not too long ago.
Oh.
I was at this hotel in the Bay, not in the Bay, but in Marina Del Rey with my mentor. She was going through her own thing. She called me down there so we can have dinner. And she was calling everybody bitch that week. Everybody was a bitch. Her grandchildren were bitches. Her husband was a bitch.
Is she a Black woman?
Black woman, yeah. Fair, like really light. 2C hair. So you have to squint. But she claims her Blackness completely. Some context. She's in the corporate world. People love her, right? She has this sassy attitude that gives her rewards in a certain arena. But when taken out, I think this. Anyway, so we're getting on the elevator, and there's a two-person limit capacity. And
Hey, let her finish.
No, I'm not gonna interrupt, but it just continue.
Yeah.
And this other lady gets on, and it starts beeping, beep, beep. You know, don't get on. We can't go with you. She was a little on the after your side. And then my mentor, she goes, bitch, get out the elevator. I was expecting her to laugh because she's an older lady calling somebody a bitch. It's funny to me. It's not fun. It wasn't funny to her. She's like,
yeah, it's traumatizing for the poor woman who that happened to, of course.
And she had 7 or 8 black dudes with her. She looked like a working girl. They wouldn't get off the elevator. They all wanted to go down at the same time. I leave the situation because I'm triggered. I'm like, they have guns. And I'm like, these are black people. Why do I feel this way? Okay, so my mentor goes down the elevator, and I'm going back to the room. I don't have a key, so I'm coming back, hoping to get the key. I have to go down the elevator, though. The black people are still there, 7 or 8 of them, black dudes. And one of the guys comes up to me. He approaches me. He's like, we didn't mean any harm. I'm like, okay. I shake his hand. He asked me my name. I got his name. We got on the elevator. And this guy assaults me. And I've never been assaulted in public.
Like physically assaults you?
He touches all over my body.
Yeah.
And I didn't scream. I didn't do anything, right? And I'm just stuck in this elevator with these men who are touching all over my body. And that bait and switch that occurs, that, oh, geez, so that happened to people. And that mistrust, I can attest to that, is there. And it's something I won't say. But since this has happened to me, I have a better language, better, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and what is, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that you experienced that.
But I feel wiser. That's what I have to say. But,
and geez, I just under the Racism White Supremacy, I feel like everyone should have the means to protect themselves from that sort of assault. So I recommend everyone to at least carry like some kind of like pokeable object, you know, aim for the eyes, you know, worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And it's just, jeez.
Wow.
And through my fear, they were able to consume me in a way I hadn't been consumed before. Yeah. And he knew that guy.
And it's almost like he was preying on your guilt because he was like, hey, you know, we're not that bad. So it's this idea of like, you know, preying on this idea that you judged him. And so now you feel guilty. And so now he's, like, there's just so many layers of abuse, like, and manipulation. But yeah, sometimes you're not safe around your people because of white supremacy. That's like,
I would bet my life that like 98.5% of like most violence, poverty, and mistreatment would evaporate if white supremacy was replaced with a system of justice where no one's allowed to be mistreated and those who need the most help receive the most help. But that's society. Hopefully we can build in our lives. I'm trying. We're all trying. Yeah. Jeez. So yeah, under the system of white supremacy, trust no one.
So then how do you
Oh jeez. Yeah. Man. Babe, you're gonna say something, Ash?
Oh no, it's okay. I'm just still like processing. Thinking.
So I attended for these recordings to go on YouTube every day. Are you comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
What if you do not? I didn't reach that part yet. You should have known it. Because it's not because you reached that part. You have to watch the avatar. You have to watch that and you know what happened to me. I'm not going to break out with me.
Oh, yeah. So, give me 1 second.
So what do you want to do? What do you want to do?
That was a little heavy. I didn't mean for it to be.
But it's okay. Like, You sharing that is not an imposition in any way.
Yeah, it's like, it's your reality.
Yeah. And it's like we're talking about heavy stuff, so it's not like
Falls right in the line what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is the violence persists,
Okay, so this quote is from page 39. And it's just like furthering how religion is used to like just subjugate the mind. Okay. Richard teaches Equiano, an orphaned African child, to look to a symbolic white deity father for solace and comfort. The Christian principles of sacrifice and selflessness reinforce Equiano a servile identification with the desires of hunger of white men. As kind and loving as Richard is, he ultimately conditions Equiano to better play the role of slave. So, yeah, it's just like, religion, conditioning in a nutshell. They're one and the same. I would argue.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. It's interesting too because don't a lot of white people believe that black people are, or they did believe that black people are the children of Ham? I think that's like.
Yes, yeah, that's. But you can't go to a different room, Ash.
Oh, is it too loud? Yeah, I'll just tell him. I told him. Yeah, and it's like really interesting because it's almost like the religion deems them as like these damned people who, but then it's like because of that they're constantly striving to be like white or to be like not the children of Ham. And but like can you ever not be that? And it's like this, you're constantly striving to be something that you can never be because the white people are the ones who deem you that. And it's like the same thing as looking for like trying to assimilate into white spaces. I feel like
I'm gonna say that under the system of white supremacy, no, we cannot be anything but heathens, black savages, to white people. What did Daryl Wilson call Michael Brown? He called him a demon, superhuman. So this is the disturbed thinking that racism and white supremacy produces. It demonizes people who are non-white. It by default places them at such a level compared to it places like a white person compared to a non-white person on such unequal levels that the pain and suffering of non-white people has been made into everyday mockery, everyday entertainment, everyday things that we can easily not think about,
And there's a part of the book where I'm going to just make up a word where that kind of relationship was legitimized through, I forget, here we're discussing how blacks, their skin is a little thicker. And then I think about eugenics and how what we just discussed that is legitimized through that made up pseudoscience.
There's white supremacists hella practice eugenics and hella believe that whites are smarter, superior, therefore deserve to dominate and subjugate everyone non-white. And why else would this system exist? Why else would everyone non-white be so terrorized almost daily? And why would slavery ever have happened if the system wasn't real? So far we've talked about. I'm not so far. We don't have to give a recap. Cruelty. Okay, so I'm sure we're gonna hammer on how normalized Oh, let's talk about some terms that we've learned from this book and the new terminology that we've discovered, like flesh harvesters, seasoning of the flesh. How has it been to like been exposed to this new like reality of what was done to the other like human beings of the past, or as I like to say, your ancestors, one's ancestors.
Well, starting with seasoning, it makes me not want to use that in a cooking context anymore. They always say Black people love seasoned food. They have all the spices. And
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
I think about what it means to reclaim a word. But knowing what I know now in terms of how they meant to break down the Negro in order to build him up in the white man's image, seasoning, it makes me a little uneasy. And just as we vowed at the beginning of the conversation to think about words like darkness differently, so too, seasoning and things like that, and words like consumption, even. Yeah, that was real.
Yeah, I've definitely have seen like understood the word consumption in a whole new light. Because I think like you consume something, you get a product, you use it, you're consuming it. I didn't think it could ever be like displayed in such a boring manner, such an evil way. I never thought. Well, I guess like now I could like of course realize that like human labor is a form of consumption, and like you know sexual exchanges can be a form of consumption, but to see it manifested in this way is just so like wow. I knew slavery was, of course, I knew slavery was bad, but I didn't know it was so vile. I didn't know it was like so wretched. I didn't know that I could read things that make me sick, genuinely make me sick. Um, to hammer that statement in, I'm gonna read what I have highlighted here on page 45. Um, One of the narrated examples of this cruelty is a Negro man staked to the ground and cut most shockingly. His crime involved being, end quote, connected with a white woman who was a common prostitute, end quote. While staked to the ground, the overseer, bit by bit, cut off pieces of each of his ears, prolonging what was already a horrific and unbearable punishment. It was common practice in the Caribbean not only to cut off the ears of slaves, but to also broil them and make the slaves eat the broiled pieces as punishment. So yeah, this is just furthering the stuff we've talked about. But these are lived experience of real human beings that, thanks to Vincent Woodard, we are able to like process and learn about and contextualize it with modern day reality and society, because many ways a lot of these things are still going on, and I just need to say Jeffrey Dahmer to prove it, unless there's a system in place to prevent him from those types from emerging again. So, um, oh, if anyone, does anyone have anything to add? Because I have some more. I could just have something else that um, I see fucking today in modern day reality that Ekrano was talking about. 1800s. So I'm just gonna read it. Page 47 towards the bottom. Equiano observed that many masters would make slaves go on their knees and thank their owners and pray, or rather say, God bless them. Plantation masters frequently cited Old Testament biblical references to devotees blindly serving their master. So this just reminds me of being in church, just seeing like black people like just praise the Lord, jump up and down, thank you Jesus. For what? For what? Like white supremacy is still here. So we should give thanks to anything until it's gone. But you know, this is just my own personal opinions. But I think it's
Sorry to interrupt. We're gonna get cut off again. So just log back in if you want to continue. Sorry about that. I'll fix it next time.
Okay. Okay, we'll just continue. I guess it's gonna be like chapter 1 is gonna be 3 parts already because we have like 3 different videos already.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna end the call and just we rejoin.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
No worries.
Yeah.